Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Right?
Well, right. For the we're going to start cranking. We're going to start the cranking.
It's like the man in the middle of the earth. You know, he just sits on it and starts spinning the wheels.
He's the cranking man.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what they call him, even in Greek mythology.
The cranking man?
The cranking man.
I'm
gonna have to look that up.
You should ask the internet that right now.
The interwebs. Mm-hmm. Oh, great interwebs! What do you tell me?
So we've got only a few trailers to talk about, and I think they both represent a real low in American cinema. Ironically, perhaps in Korean cinema as well. Right? I mean, right?
Wow. Yeah, you might be right.
I just can't take it seriously. Arnold Schwarzenegger is having quite a year. I can't tell if his governorship was all just a stepping stone to get into different sorts of movies.
Well, it hasn't worked.
It was
he's not in Anna Karenina.
No.
So.
Okay. Perhaps this one didn't work as I planned it. I've got to go back to my planning.
Oh man.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is he's doing Expendables 2. I thought it sounds like, and I didn't see Expendables 1. I know he had a part in that as well, right?
A very bit part.
You saw it. You celebrated that movie.
It's exactly what you're expecting it to be.
Terrible?
It really is.
Terrible?
No, I mean, it's enjoyable in its schlocky action way. And Expendables 2 stands to be more of the same.
Mm-hmm. I was just trying to think who I could do this show with instead of you, and because clearly our paths have parted. No, that is not fair, because I have not seen the movie, and I will. I will see the movie. I will see them both. But I was surprised that he had a part, that he had a bit part in Expendables, because he was still an acting governor,
right,
at the time, and a bigger part, I understand it, in Expendables 2, and he is headlining The Last Stand.
Yeah, and this is, a chance for him to get back into the ranks of bad movies being released in January. So he really is getting out on the right note.
Oh,
I mean, Expendables 2, which actually opens the day this goes live. I mean, it stands to be another fun romp. I think even Entertainment Weekly gave it a B, and I haven't checked ratings about it. One of these days we're going to have our Rotten Tomatoes conversation, and we still haven't gotten there.
Yeah, I know.
But Rotten Tomatoes is,
this may be, this
63% higher than The Bourne Legacy.
It may be next week that we have that conversation, when we see the Expendables 2's performance and watch how it performs on Rotten Tomatoes. We may have what's the word? Cause. Yeah, catalyst for a conversation on Rotten Tomatoes and ratings. Especially ratings kind of before the masses have seen the movies. I don't know. It just looks bad. And so the trailer of The Last Stand, he's not the governor anymore. It's sort of a step down, I guess. And
he's only the sheriff.
Maybe not in pay, but he's only the sheriff. And he drives looks like he's driving a Chevy. There's a well-branded Chevy in the logo art, in the poster. It is a well-branded Chevy logo shining in the corner. It is.
You'd never guess who is one of the product placement companies for this film.
This is directed by Kim Ji-woon. And so it should be fantastic. But the one thing that I think we should note is that this film also balances. If Arnold Schwarzenegger, let's just say he's at the fulcrum of the teeter-totter, on one end of the dramatic scale of the dramaturge teeter-totter, we have the fantastic Forrest Whitaker,
who is always wonderful to watch.
He is, and that's when he this guy does the best reaction shots, and he gives good reaction shots.
He does.
And on the other end of the dramaturge teeter-totter is the fine and talented Johnny Knoxville. What is fascinating about Johnny Knoxville is he is fine and talented at a lot of things, none of which, in my opinion, are acting. I think
and you watch the trailer, and I think you see the entirety of his acting skills.
Yeah.
In every shot that he's in the trailer, he has a look of complete imbecility.
Yes.
If I can use that as a word.
You can make that up. And I think that's what's so magical about Johnny Knoxville. I am fantastically entertained by Johnny Knoxville. Like when I watch him, when I watch the what is it, Jackass movies and the thing, I can't watch too much. I think I've seen like the first 15 minutes of like every Jackass.
Well, but see, you can't call those. I mean, they're movies only because they
were released.
They have the right running time, and they're playing theatrically. But they're not a movie. It's a reality show extended for a theater, and you can't call it acting of what you see in those films.
No, I wouldn't. We are here on this point. We stand in violent agreement.
Violent agreement.
We are in violent agreement, and I think that Johnny Knoxville. I'm not sure that he is providing any buoyancy to The Last Stand. Certainly not in the same way that he provides buoyancy to the Jackass films. That
is true.
I'm going to be Democratic because I don't want him coming to my house because I think he would destroy it.
He would staple something to your body.
He would. There would be some staples.
And do unspeakable evils to your property.
I think that this is going to be. The biggest problem that I have about this is I feel bad for the state of California a little bit. Like I just like this is just like cruel and unusual. It's inhumane punishment to the governorship of California.
This would have been like maybe not quite on par, but if Ronald Reagan jumped back into the acting game after he stepped down as president.
Exactly. I
mean, I'm not sure I should be putting the governorship of California at the same level as the president of the United States, but you get my point.
I get it. I get it. That's where we are with The Last Stand starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. I don't know. I got nothing else to say on this one.
To that note, which I don't know how it's a kind of an obscure jump, but I found this very interesting that do you remember the movie that came out probably I'd say 15 years ago or so? Albert Brooks directed it, called Mother.
Yes.
It was him and Debbie Reynolds as his mother.
Yes.
His original casting choice for that film was Nancy Reagan.
Oh, fancy that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's like, I mean, she had been an actress in her day. That's how she met Ronald and
right.
and all that. But it would have been very interesting, just like it would have been interesting to see Ronald Reagan step back into film. It would have been very interesting to see Nancy Reagan step in. But obviously, the cards were not lining up for that to happen.
Fascinating.
I don't think cards line up. It's the stars that line up.
Stars line up. Cards are dealt.
See, I'm turning into Biff.
Or they're held in a hand. Yeah, that's right. Screen doors on a battleship and all that whatnot.
So the only other trailer that I wanted to bring up was due to an error I made last week when I was talking about the trailer for Lawless and how I had mentioned that the trailer that I saw before The Bourne Legacy had been modified after the horrendous occurrence in Colorado at the screening of Dark Knight Rises, that they had modified it because there's a scene in the film where gangsters come through a movie screen and shoot up the crowd, which is just horrible coincidence. But it was not Lawless, and I was wrong in naming that as the film. It's actually Gangster Squad, the film that's coming out with Sean Penn and Josh Brolin. That's the film that had that scene and is horribly enough actually was even playing before Dark Knight Rises.
I remember that. This is it's got Ryan Gosling in it.
Yes, Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone.
I got this so confused because it's the other one that has Sexy Back in it. What's his name?
I don't think he's in it.
He's not in Gangster Squad. He's in the one you got to confuse.
He's in Lawless.
He's in Lawless.
Yeah.
And I think Sexy Back and Gosling share similar characteristics. So I didn't catch that.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
What's his name? Sexy back.
Justin Timberlake.
That's the one. That's the one. I prefer Sexy back.
Yeah. Well, it works.
And Emma Stone.
People know who he's talking about.
Yeah. Emma Stone in Gangster Squad. I should
Emma
say.
Stone, who has a sexy back.
One would be able to comment as such.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Well, that is a correct. Look, we now have a follow-up and correction segment of the show.
That's
We
right.
should make more errors like this, and then we can have a really robust corrections segment.
That would be just sad.
That would be a sad strategic move, I think. All right.
It would be.
The only other thing I want to say out of sadness, and I'm sort of crossing myself insofar as you do that, talking about movies, is Red Dawn, the remake. That is a sad remake, and it should not have been done because you don't touch the Swayze. You don't. This is a sacrilege. It's a Swayze sacrilege. It's a Swayze religion.
Yeah. I was sitting, I can't remember who I was sitting next to when I saw the trailer, but the response was, they're remaking that?
I know. You
What
can
are they
hear it.
thinking?
It's a collective, it is a collective guffaw. It's a horrible, horrible thing that they're doing. It's just like, as long as we're going to be talking about, what IP we're going to start remaking, this is like so far at the bottom of the list of where you would even start to talk about remaking a movie.
Well, it's going to turn into another Total Recall.
Yeah. I had some sadness about that.
Yeah, I know.
Guado.
A lot of people have.
God.
Yeah.
Just don't touch the Guado. All right. That's all I wanted to say. I don't want to belabor Red Dawn. I feel like I've said my piece.
All right.
That's all I want to talk about. But I will
Fantastic.
tell you this: what I'm excited about is I downloaded the book of the other movie that we're very excited about.
What book is that?
We talked about it. I suddenly can't remember the name of it. We talked about it last week, I think, on the show. It was the trailer with the Tom Hanks and the Wachowskis.
Oh, Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas. I've started Cloud Atlas. That's
wonderful.
I'm like 3 pages into it. The
Is
first
it
3
as
pages.
long as the movie makes it out to be? Long and sprawling and
It feels sprawling. I don't get it feels sprawling and not particularly huge, but then I've been reading I've been reading some really, really epic reads, and so it doesn't really compare to some of the stuff I've been kind of working through. The Pandora's Star and Judas Unchained. I mean, these are epic, giant epic reads, and these are, I think Cloud Atlas is like half as long as those. So this feels pretty short by comparison.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts when you finish the book.
Yeah, no, but I got to finish it before. When's it come out? Next year?
October. No, it's this October.
This October. So I got to hurry.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, that'll be my next one. Okay, so what are we talking about tonight? Tonight we're starting a new series. I love this. We're kicking off a new series. It's like launching a ship.
It is. It's exciting, and this is going to be a great one to get out of harbor. Some of our series are, like hopping in the motorboat and cruising around the harbor, and docking. This one feels more like a big ocean liner, and we're really traversing some big waters.
Yes, that was good. Did you see what happened there? I feel like I set you up. This was like the perfect T-ball game. I set you up
great.
with the little ship thing, and then you just took it. You owned that metaphor. I love that. Okay. So here's what we need to do. First, the series that we are launching here is the Richard Zanuck series.
Yes.
And
the late great Richard D. Zanuck.
Why you sent me an email and you said we definitely need to do Richard Zanuck, and I would very much love to hear you say why. This was several weeks ago.
Yeah, he just passed away at the toward the end of July, and his body of work. I mean, first of all, he's a Zanuck. He's from a pretty important family in the world of film. His father, Daryl Zanuck, essentially was one of the founders of 20th Century Fox, and he went on to become a member of the Fox team. He was the vice president for a while, and he moved up. And in I think it was the late '60s, there was quite a mess over there at Fox, and he had to leave. But then he left, and with his friend and partner David Brown, created an amazing producing company, and went on to produce numerous amazing films. And even beyond that, when that partnership dissolved, and with different relationships and whatnot, he was producing all the way until the end. His last film that he produced came out just this year. In fact, it was Dark Shadows, Tim Burton's film, which probably not the greatest film to end on. But regardless, he has so many amazing films under his belt as producer, and then also as films that he saw through when he was running Fox. And so, I mean, he's a big name in the film business, and having had a hand in so many films, after he passed, I really felt that it was an important person to talk about.
Important, I think, is the word. And I had lost context, and sometimes it's hard to, when you look at directors, it's really easy to, you say Steven Spielberg, and you get this sort of sense of their body of work just from the name. Those movies kind of, for guys like us, kind of in our generation, that really speaks to us. And, but you lose, I think you lose a little bit of context when you start dropping these producers' names, and until you see the list of the work that they shepherded to screen, you don't really have a solid perspective of I don't know what of sort of a story arc of the stories that the stories of the films and how they relate to the sort of mission of what they are. Of what they're trying to share with the world, and in the case of Zanuck, and particularly the film we're starting with, I think we see a guy who found a story and used it to put a stake in the ground for his career, and you can see the messages that he is that he is allowed telling through this film tonight, sort of replay. Throughout his career, and I'm very excited to see more of these movies again and look at them in this light. Yeah,
likewise. It is exciting to look at it in this light, because I mean, what you just said is very true. When you're looking at films, it's so easy, thinking of the auteur theory, or looking at the cinematography, or all these different elements within the film itself. It's so easy to talk about those elements. How it was directed, how the actors performed, how the DP shot it, what the writer was doing. But oftentimes you don't really look behind the scenes and look at somebody who's really kind of pulling the strings, trying to make everything happen.
Right.
And this is a man who is a master of it. He really learned from his father, and really figured out what to do at an early age.
So tonight's film is the 1959 productions called Compulsion, directed by Richard Fleischer, produced obviously by Richard Zanuck, written by Richard Murphy. And I feel like I want to read the billing in reverse order. I think Dean Stockwell, Bradford Dillman, and finally in the last sort of half of the play, Orson Welles. And who ended up, I believe, winning. Did he win Best Actor for this? I believe.
No,
he did not.
I don't believe he did. But both Dean Stockwell and Bradford Dillman together won Best Actor at the Cannes Film Festival.
Absolutely, absolutely stunning film. You had not seen this either, right?
I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
When we decided to do this series, but because it was his first film, felt it was kind of an important one to talk about. And I can't remember, had you seen this one before?
No, I had not seen it. And this is one that I thought I had seen, but again, I think I was looking at the, we run into this before. I'm sure it was a compulsion of a different genre.
So it was, for me, this was one of those amazing finds that I hadn't really heard of. I mean, I'd heard of very loosely the case in which it's based on, but I hadn't really heard that much of the film. And I completely fell in love with it.
Oh my goodness. Did it not, I mean, I didn't just fall in love with it. It bowled me over. I mean, I felt like, all right. So before we get into the showering with love, the case that we're talking about is, it is based, and I would say loosely, but it's really not, very tightly based on the Leopold and Loeb murder trial.
From 1924.
Right, and the book written on the murder trial was by Meyer Levin. It was of the same name, Compulsion, in 1956, and they made the movie very quickly, 1959, covering this trial. All the names have been changed, but as you sort of study into the actual murder trial or the murder case, the original case, they stuck very, very closely to the story.
A lot closer. It's very similar to like Hitchcock's film Rope.
Mm-hmm.
And
also loosely based, much more loosely, I think, based on Leopold and Loeb.
Exactly. Yeah, there are a couple other films that have been made. I mean, even you could look at a film like Murder by Numbers, a film that came out 10 years ago now. Not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. Sandra Bullock and I can't remember the other guys who are in it. But again, it's the same sort of thing where it's a couple young boys who feel they're more intelligent than anyone else and want to commit the perfect crime. And I felt, I've seen Murder by Numbers, I've seen Rope, and just reading the story of the Leopold and Loeb case, this film really, like you said, was a very accurate depiction of what really happened in the trial.
So I feel because this movie was such a find for us, there stands a good chance that folks may not have seen it. You want to walk through a little bit of the murder itself, the story?
Well, let me just read the plot summary that somebody conveniently wrote up on Wikipedia. Artie Strauss and Judd Steiner kill a boy on his way home from school in order to commit the perfect crime. Strauss tries to cover it up, but they are caught when police find a key piece of evidence, Steiner's glasses, which he left at the scene of the crime. Famed attorney Jonathan Wilk, played by Orson Welles, takes their case, saving them from hanging by making an impassioned closing argument against capital punishment.
And there you have it.
So that's the long and the short of the story there.
More the short.
Yeah, more the short. There's definitely, I could go my normal long-winded route.
Well, I am a fan of long-winded, but, especially when it's yours.
Well, thank you.
But the, so these, the nut of this movie is these are two guys who conceive of themselves as being remorseless. Mm-hmm. And they are students of Nietzsche and and Nietzsche's model of the Superman. Mm-hmm. And as such, they begin studying and making off or getting away with petty crime, and that petty crime leads to bigger and bigger crime, and eventually they end up preparing for and kidnapping and murdering a wealthy the son of a wealthy family. And that is the tale of the Leopold and Loeb murder trial. And the way, these guys in the movie, they're renamed Artie Strauss and Judd Steiner, are, they are very wealthy, and they come from, they come from the highbrow world of, in the case of the true story, I think, wasn't it, Loeb's father was the, president of Sears Roebuck at one point or something like that. I mean, we have to find that, but they come from a lot of money. And so the idea of these guys, this was that story of these guys who come from money and are bored and fashion themselves as remorseless. And so they commit these crimes just to see if they can get away with it. Yeah.
And they were very intelligent. They were, little Doogie Howsers, really. They were in college, but I think they were both, 18, 19, I think one of them, didn't he say he graduated from school at 14?
He went to college at 14, yeah.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this film, and I'm interested in your comment on this. This is, if I did not know that this was a true story before I saw it. Did you know? Had you read up on it before you saw it?
I didn't. No, I think I did loosely, but I didn't know how accurately it was going to be depicting the true story.
Okay.
So, but I think I had read somewhere that it was this based on a case that was vaguely familiar to me.
Okay. I did not know at all, and as such, I think I didn't buy it. I didn't buy the character sort of motivations, and I didn't buy, I actually bought the relationship between, Dean Stockwell's Judd and Bradford Dillman Artie. I bought their relationship between them. I thought that dynamic was good, but I didn't buy the motivation and the Nietzsche stuff and all this. And I just thought, well, that's overplayed, and they're really trying to hammer home a point that ends up being, sort of stereotypical. Of course, it was defining the stereotype, maybe. And then I started researching the movie, found out it was true, and just how true it was, to the point of Leopold and Loeb, studying Nietzsche and practicing, crime as a result of them trying to become the Superman. And I had to go back and watch the movie again.
Yeah.
Because it absolutely changes it. Even the tagline on the poster, you know why we did it? Because we damn well felt like doing it.
Yeah. It's creepy.
It's creepy. It is made much creepier, I think, within the context of the murder trial, when it's real.
Yeah. So much so that, obviously, the book was based on their case. Mm-hmm. Leopold actually was still alive when in prison when the case. No, actually, sorry, he had been let go. Loeb was killed in prison about, I think, 12 years after the trial, and after he was put in jail. He was killed in 1936. Leopold lived, I think, until 1971, actually. Right. And when did he get out of prison? He was released on parole in 1958, and went on, I think he moved out of the country. He moved to Puerto Rico and tried setting up another life there. And then when the movie was coming out and the book was coming out, he tried to block the release of it based on, the grounds of invasion of privacy, defamation, making money from his life story, all that sort of stuff. I don't believe that he succeeded. But it's amazing how long he was around, and that it was so accurate that he was fighting it.
So what is it about the construction of the film that you fell in love with?
It's a fascinating film because first off, they never show the murder.
Right.
And I found that really fascinating, where it's not a film about the murder itself. It's a film about the psyche of these two men and everything they go through, everything they're thinking about, mostly after the murder has happened, and their relationship, and all the way through the trial. It's really about them and how they see the world. And it's really, what I find so fascinating is, it's an interesting film because it kind of, the first half of it is them before and after the murder, and the investigation leading up to their capture.
Well, and that's an interesting point, right? Well, finish your sentence. I'm sorry.
Oh, and then the second half of the film is really more like, that's the point when their lawyer comes in, Orson Welles, and comes in to handle their case and the trial. And so it's kind of split down the middle between those two halves.
So the open of the film is an interesting. I think the way they handle the murder, as you're talking about, is really interesting structurally, because it opens and they're in their little two-seater, and they're going back and forth between how they want to handle, running over a drunk late at night. And they're, do they want to hit him? Do they want to not hit him? I wanted to do it because I damn well could.
Yeah.
And then we go to the credits. And then we come back, and now we're in the throes of their game.
Yeah. Now the murder's already happened.
Right. The murder happened during the credits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think your point is right on. And I think this ends up being a movie about sort of, both sides of this case end up gaming one another, right? Because the first is, were they able to put together enough of a perfect crime, to, they kill the kid, they dispose of the body, they pour the acid on it, to, make it so you can't identify the body. Were they able to do the perfect crime? They feel so confident, and you get to really sort of revel in this disgusting display of ego, particularly the ego of Artie Strauss and the sort of cold intelligence of Judd Steiner Dean Stockwell. This is unreal performance by Dean Stockwell. I didn't know the guy had it in him.
Oh, I tell you, this he just jumped up very high on my list of brilliant actors.
Brilliant.
Watching this performance was so creepy and haunting and affecting, and just played so simply. I just really all of the things that he does with his face just really.
It really did. And so did these guys put together enough of the perfect crime in order to get away with it and to be able to sort of live with the pride that they had cultivated? And then we have this wonderful, performance by the sort of the legal team and the police, and E.G. Marshall as the district attorney, in this wonderful example of the prisoner's dilemma, trying to get these guys to crack on one another. And that was just beautifully architected sequence of events, and how these, that with just perfectly tight script from Richard Murphy, that allowed this thing to unravel all around the glasses.
Yeah.
And that ends up being what pulls it apart.
Yeah, and it's fantastic, and the whole way that that's played, I think, is so well done. The whole idea that it's very clear when E.G. Marshall, District Attorney Ham, or Horn, sorry, when he provides the evidence that they have to be Steiner's glasses because there were only 3 of them made, or 3 of them sold with this particular type of hinge, and one guy's out of the country and the other person has theirs, so they have to be his. It's brilliant the way they pin it on him, and the way that he reacts to everything is done so coolly, and he plays this kind of Superman role so well. And the last bit of the film with Orson Welles about the glasses and God and who was it whose hand knocked those glasses out of your pocket, the look on his face as he thinks about that and kind of takes it in and realizes the position that he's in, and it's very likely that what his attorney Jonathan Wilk is saying is right, and it's so well done. I really liked it.
So the role of Orson Welles in this film, obviously, he, as soon as he enters the frame, there's a chill in the air. He comes in and it's sort of, you kind of get the feeling that, particularly from the first sequence, when he walks into that room full and he's just the district attorney is just handed over the floor to questions for 5 minutes from the reporters and other investigators, and he's very proud because really, the district attorney has done everything by the book. Like he hasn't hurt these guys, he hasn't coerced them, he hasn't beaten them up, he ran an intelligent and clever investigation and got them to turn on one another and tell the story. That was it, right? And it was, it leads to the death penalty. That's where they were going with this.
Right.
And then Orson Welles come in, and he walks in the room, and he tells everybody to stop. And I found myself thinking, I wonder if he knows what movie he's in. Like he walks in, he so owns the screen that he could have been in any film in that scene. you name it, generic lawyer film. He may have actually thought he was in a jungle at the time.
Well, he commands such presence. And the great thing about Orson Welles is he always has some different nose every time he appears. So he's got this different nose on, because he always felt like changing his nose helped him find the character, as I recall. And he's got that kind of gray and greasy looking hair, and he just looks world weary.
Yes.
He just looks like, I mean, the way he plays Jonathan Wilk, their attorney, is so well done. It's just this world weary character who's so smart, but who has seen so much evil in the world and is just tired. But he believes in his job, and he's going to do his job, and he still has questions about what's right and what's wrong, but he's going to do his job, and he's going to do it well.
He, he ended up in playing a difficult or a challenging real life character. They changed the name in the film, but his role was based on Clarence Darrow, mm-hmm. who was I am not sure which he's more widely known for. Defending Scopes in the Scopes monkey trial. Or just his role in the founding of the ACLU, but he has been a long defendant of sort of the rights of the accused and fair justice, and that's what Orson Welles took on. That's the mantle he took on in this film, and it all sort of culminates in a fantastic monologue at the end of the film. Where Orson Welles, as Darrow in this case, pleads his case that we are, we're no better than they are if we resort to killing them. Is it not enough to lock them away?
It's an amazing monologue, and I found myself agreeing with him. I mean, I thought the crime that Steiner and Strauss committed was atrocious, but by the end of Wilk's speech, I was in complete agreement with him.
I was. You know what I found really interesting about this, and I think this is a sign of, as we've been doing more and more of these old, these movies from the 40s and 50s, right? Mm-hmm. Then we do some of the car chase movies of the 60s, and we move into the present. I think one of the things that I'm taking away from the sort of passage of time is an illustration of the great patience of these 50s, 40s and 50s directors, these early sort of film directors. Mm-hmm. And I think Richard Fleischer, I think this sequence at the end shows an unbelievable restraint. He could have gone for, the quick, clippy sort of, let's just get Orson Welles to hit the big high notes and the emotional high notes and move on. But this is a soliloquy. This is, I don't know, do you know off the top of your head how long they let him talk at the end?
Boy, it feels like 15 minutes.
It sure feels
really
like
does.
it does feel like it, but not. I'm sure that's not the case. I feel like it's shorter than that. But I'm gonna bring it up kind of while we're talking. But one of the things that I think really highlights this is just Fleischer's unbelievable sense of restraint in not going for the easy buck, but in letting this speech play out, because it builds in such a sophisticated way. And by the end, I think you're really hit it. By the end, you are at the mercy of this electrifying plea. As Orson Welles is practically begging not just the judge, because he's already had the jury dismissed, which is a brilliant bit of writing in itself. Yeah. But he is pleading with the courtroom, with the reporters and the audience in the courtroom, and you just feel like he is an island. He is a man alone. That even the guilty expect themselves to be killed at this point. Mm-hmm. And that Orson Welles is alone.
And as he starts his speech, you still have all those naysayers in the courtroom. Every time he says something,
Yeah.
somebody, has a wry comment to make about it, and by the end of his speech, it's silent.
Yeah. It is particularly moving. It's no, it's no Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson kind of moment. It shows a much greater kind of spiritual sympathy.
Yeah. It's what's interesting is Artie's reaction to that as soon as the judge makes his ruling. And he's just like, "What? After 3 months, and that's it?" It's so dismissive of everything that Orson Welles' character Wilk just did for them to keep them alive and to keep them from getting killed. He's so dismissive of that, and he says, "I'd rather have just hung."
Yeah, and I think that's part of the artistry of Wells' portrayal of this character, and I think it very much embodies. And I'm no Darrow expert, I'm absolutely not, but in my reading, particularly historical sort of take on Scopes, you sort of get this impression that Darrow's motivations are more complex, and I think Wells' portrayal it really illustrates that he took this case and he made that plea not really for those guys, even in so much as he made it for himself, because of his belief. He knows these guys are terrible.
Says, after Artie makes that comment, he says, "Well, I wasn't expecting you to get on your knees and thank me." It's just like, it was a chance to show that he does believe that these rich kids have as much right to a trial to let live locked up in jail as any of the poor people that he defends.
Right.
So
it was extremely powerful, and I think a real highlight of the film.
Yeah.
And he looks. I mean, by the end of the film, he looks beaten up. He looks weathered. He's just horrible.
It's interesting how much winning this case takes out of him,
right?
Because it's so challenging morally. What is really the right thing to do here?
Right. He degrades. He absolutely degrades over time.
Yeah.
Other highlights. Any commentary on the cinematography and the sort of shot structure that stood out to you? It's
great. It's done really nicely. It has a very noir feel. It's very stark in its black and whiteness. There's a great little shot that, it's a nice little nod to the importance of the glasses in the film. It's not too long and it's not done too often, so it's not offensive at all. But
are you talking about
showing the passage of time as as E.G. Marshall's character Horn puts the glasses down on a side table, and we see them and out the window, and then time passes. We see the room, the outside get dark, the lights turn on, all that stuff, and then we see the characters' reflections appear. E.G. Marshall's character appears in one lens, and Dean Stockwell's character appears in the other as they continue their conversation hours after it started. It's a nice little touch, just kind of showing the passage of time, showing the importance of the glasses, and showing how everything really hinged on it. It's a fun little trick that they do in the film. Other than that, it really has a great noir feel, and it's nothing too complex. And Richard Fleischer, who directed this, was never really known for a kind of an auteur type of director, being that sort of director. He was always very much kind of a I don't want to call him a hack, but he was very much just a director that producers brought on, and he made very satisfying films for the studios. But I don't think you could go through his body of work and be able to say, this is clearly in Richard Fleischer's catalog. I don't think you could do that. But after doing this film, he ended up coming on board quite a few films for Fox, because this was a big success for him. It was nominated for the Palme d'Or at the 1959 Cannes Film Festival. And, he went on and directed quite a few other films with them. And he actually has kind of I guess they call it a trilogy of true crime films that he did. I don't think it's really a trilogy, but it just happened to be 3 films that he made for Fox that were all in this kind of true serial killers focusing on capital punishment. He did Compulsion, he did The Boston Strangler, and he did 10 Rillington Place. So those 3 films he kind of helmed, and he had a long life. I mean, he was making films in the 80s. I mean, he made Conan the Destroyer, Red Sonja, Amityville 3D. I mean, he's been around a long time. And of course, his father is the famous Max Fleischer, the animator.
Those were some Schwarzenegger films. As long as we're talking about sort of where this film fits, we started talking about Richard Zanuck. How do you feel like this film ended up sort of defining the Richard Zanuck story?
Well, Richard Zanuck, my understanding is he came on this film. He was already working with his father at Fox, but his father was, I believe he was out of town working on a project in Africa in 1959. And so his dad basically gave him a chance to produce this film. And he brought it in under budget, ahead of schedule. The 2 stars won Best Actor at the Cannes Film Festival. It did really well. I mean, for the sort of film that it was, it came, like I said, it came in under budget. It made a decent amount of money, and it got acclaim. That's exactly what he needed to do for his first film to continue working as at the level that he was. And I think he went on from here to really find smart stories that interested people with interesting characters, and let the directors kind of do what they needed to do to tell the story. And he also had a real eye for talent, and I think he found it in the actors in this film. And I think I just said Richard Fleischer, I don't think is really kind of an auteur type of director, but he's a very gifted director in the sense that he knows how to put a story on film that works really well.
He strikes me as sort of a kind of a utility player, for a studio utility player.
Yeah.
Here's a guy he's not going to be he's not going to be a pillar, but he's going to be he's going to be a foundation of solid films. And in this case, certainly in the case of Compulsion, this is a movie that has boy, in my book, really withstood the test. I think this movie, people need to see this movie.
Something else that we didn't really bring up yet about the actors and the performances that I really found fascinating about this film is the nature of kind of this homosexual subtext between the 2 characters, and this very strange kind of sadomasochistic relationship that they have with one another.
Talk about that.
Well, I just find it so interesting that, to me, it feels like there is a homosexual relationship between these 2 characters. The way that a lot, or at least they haven't addressed it between the 2 of them, but there's something there. The way that Judd needs to be commanded by Artie, the way that he has to always be with Artie, the way that he reacts when people bring up, why don't you do anything like, hang out with girls or play sports. It just seems so interesting that, I mean, this came out in 1959. They're obviously still being careful about talking about this too blatantly in films, but it still comes across, to me, it seemed like they were saying, this is a guy who has more of homosexual tendencies than not. And the whole idea of when Artie, there's a girl in the film, played by Diane Varsi. She plays Ruth Evans in this film. Diane Varsi was, I think, most well known around this time. I mean, she gets second billing in the film. She's most well known for this time because of Peyton Place, and I think that was a big draw to get some women into the film, and to watch the movie. But there's a scene where Judd, who is attracted to Ruth, is going to meet her and take her bird watching, and Artie essentially commands him to rape her, and which is another really interesting thing for the time. And when Judd is kind of, shocked by the idea of it, Artie says, haven't we said we want to explore all human experience? Now that could be rape, but on the other hand, it could also be, sexual relations with a girl. There's so many interesting little things throughout this film that when you watch it, it really does end up having this very interesting homosexual relationship between these two guys, and the way that is sadomasochistically played out between the two of them. And it's even going so far, and I don't know how this plays into what I just said, but it is a very weird relationship that Judd has with his brother. His brother very much almost plays more of a father figure than his father does, who doesn't even come into the story until after Judd's already been arrested.
Yes. Okay, so 2 points. First of all, his brother, what's his name? The actor.
Is it Richard Anderson? He plays Max Steiner.
Max Steiner, Richard Anderson.
Yeah.
He was the always looking for Ilsa in Indiana Jones. Right?
Was he?
Wasn't that him? I didn't check this. It's just it suddenly came to me. It's just come to me out of the blue. A bolt of inspiration. Please go find that out. But my point was about I think it's an interesting take on the sexual deviance in a time when we are not accustomed to talking about sexual deviance. Because these guys weren't, they weren't just, latent homosexuals, right?
Right.
Like that's sort of a different thing. And this is, and I think they were latent sexual deviants and masochists who didn't know how to channel that energy, and it turned into psychopathic behavior, right? It channeled into psychopathic behavior. And I think that is a really interesting commentary on, now with the benefit of, 60 plus years of hindsight, to look at how we have, transitioned that dialogue about sexual deviance to, over time. And we end up with the, put the lotion on its skin, and you have, that dealing with, the sexual deviance in, why can't I remember? I could recite the entire speech, but I won't. I can't remember it's the Hannibal movie, the first one.
Oh, Silence of the
Lambs, yeah. Right? So we end up looking at sort of the deviance in Silence of the Lambs, and it deals with sort of transsexual deviance, and now how does that play out now that we are culturally much more sort of adept at talking about and understanding and being present and accepting of homosexuality in a way that in 1959 we were not.
Right.
I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I think it wasn't until a couple years later when Otto Preminger's film came out that dealt much more with homosexuality. I'm completely blanking on what it's called, but I think that came out in the early 60s. So yeah, it was kind of disguised in a way, but today it seems a little more interesting that it's there and obvious, and it's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it is. I hadn't thought a whole lot about it. What was the movie that you're talking about, the Preminger movie?
It was Advice and Consent.
Okay.
Came out in 1962.
Yeah. Such a fascinating film. What else do we need to cover on this film as we wrap up?
Well, another element of the psyche of these two men is not just the can we get away with it, But the other thing I found so fascinating, and there's so many interesting psychological elements of these characters that just keep happening throughout the film that just are so interesting to watch. And the other one that came up for me is the idea of the celebrity and feeling important when Artie, once the police start investigating it, how Artie starts helping the cops, not really helping them draw him to himself as a suspect, but pointing out other people and just...
when he starts setting up teachers.
Yeah, setting up teachers, and he creates this important part that he plays now in the investigation. And my understanding of killers is this is something that they do where they actually try to help, and it's interesting to see it play out here. But what I found interesting is how it's this status of importance that he feels and he places upon it, and even when he invites the press into his house to use the phone, and his friend Sid, who is in the press, but also his boss, and it's haunting that the psychology that he has when he's doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's really true. That sort of need to be present, and the realization when when Stockwell or when Judzy says it's the guy I was with is Artie Strauss, and the detective turns around and says that's the guy who's been helping us.
Yeah,
the collective kick to the gut, as if this has never happened before.
Right.
I'm so surprised. It was fantastic. It was a great twist.
Yeah.
That's
great film. The last little bit of trivia that I think is just fun, aside from the wonderful cast. I mean, there's I don't think there's any lemons in the cast at all. I was gonna say melons. I don't know.
There are no cantaloupes.
There's no lemons, and there's no melons either. I think everyone was so great, but I absolutely have to point out that Gavin MacLeod is in this.
I know, Gavin MacLeod.
It's like I just wanted to go watch The Love Boat again.
Okay, so I was clicking around looking at the cast, cast bio pictures and things like that. And one of the things that you will notice is if you go to Gavin MacLeod's Wikipedia page, Did you go to his page?
I didn't, but I will.
Do it, because you will notice when you look at the bio picture in his main Wikipedia bio picture, what glasses is he wearing?
He's wearing the killer's glasses.
Gavin MacLeod did it all along. It was actually Gavin MacLeod. Reopen. This is one for the cold case team.
That is funny. That is too funny.
Yeah.
Too funny.
All right. I think you're absolutely right. The cast is fantastic, including Gavin MacLeod. I think E.G. Marshall he set the stage really for the perfectly crafty and well-intentioned district attorney. And what I love these old movies because we talk about these actors who build what is now a stereotype. Like that's one, and it was fantastic. And again, Dean Stockwell, holy smokes.
Yeah, I mean this is he owns this film. I mean, aside from Orson Welles, who owns any film he's in, but man, is he good.
He looking at he's got one of those stunningly long filmographies. His career has been exceptional.
Yeah.
So we're going to be starting the Dean Stockwell series for the year 2015. That's pretty much all we're going to do. It's Dean Stockwell movies.
He has been a busy man.
And we're going to do Dune 3 times because it's that good. That's all I got to say. You want to talk about where people can find you?
Yeah, people can find me at Soda Creek Film on Twitter, or they can find me over at Facebook at Soda Creek Film. And of course, they can always find me at rashpixel.tv/MWL for movies we like.
Mm-hmm. And you can find me at Pete Wright on the Twitter, or at rashpixel.tv/MWL and rashpixel.com. I post pictures there. Would love to have you stop by and look at them. That's all I got.
Leave us some feedback on iTunes and ratings. And you know what I think is another great thing that people can do, Pete?
What? As long as we're asking.
I think they could go to our Facebook page, and if they're listening to our stories or they're following any of our things, share it with your friends on your Facebook pages.
You should do that, people. That would be so. How easy is that? It's a click. You don't even have to say anything. Just share it. That's
right.
Enough.
That's us out into the world.
Hey, you know what else? Andy has been posting these, polls. You should participate in a poll. Let us know what movies you're interested in seeing. That helps us build our library for the Film Board. If you haven't caught the most recent Film Board episode on Google Plus, we posted it in the feed. You should check it out there and hear what the Film Board thought of last week's big opener, The Bourne Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
That was good talk.
It was indeed.
It was
deep,
a little
technically troubling.
Yeah, well, for you, a lot for you. You became kind of a comic foil. I'm not going to lie to you. You played your role.
Yeah, I don't know if that's what I wanted to be.
Look at the smart guy trying to talk. And so deep thanks to Mike Evans and Steve Sarmento and Chad Stoops for jumping in to have a conversation about that. And check that out. That's all I got. I'm out of here.
Wonderful conversation. We'll hit up
Likewise.
more Zanuck next week.
Are we going to tell people what we're going to do?
Next week, we're going to tap into 1973's amazing film, Best Picture winner, The Sting.
I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Till next week, Andrew.
And how.
We wanted to take a moment to thank you for your continued support over the years. It's hard to believe that we have been having weekly, in-depth discussions about movies since 2011.
That's right, 12 years and counting. Producing this show is a labor of love for us, but it does require a lot of time and effort each week.
If you enjoy our podcast and would love to help keep it going, there are some easy ways you can show your support. One is by using our Originals page to shop for the original source material that movies we've discussed were based on.
That's right. In Season 1 alone, we covered 13 films adapted from books or plays, from Charlie Kaufman's adaptation to David Fincher adaptations like Fight Club.
In Season 2, we covered even more, like Powell and Pressburger's The Red Shoes and The African Queen from our series about legendary cinematographer Jack Cardiff.
We can't forget about the 4 Jason Bourne movies we talked about. Love those movies. Well, the original trilogy, at least.
For our Richard D. Zanuck series, we did Jaws, Rush, Big Fish, and more. And for our horror series, we talked about John Carpenter's The Thing, which was adapted from Who Goes There?
We did our first great car chase series with movies like Bullet, The French Connection, and Drive. And for the holidays, we did Preston Sturgis's Christmas in July.
We had a great John Huston series with adaptations like The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
And for our baseball series, Moneyball with Brad Pitt. Have I told you lately how much I love that movie?
Yeah, I think you have. Plus, our Magician series and Heist film series had adaptations as well.
Tons of page-to-screen gems. Listeners can find the details and links to the original material at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play, or movie you buy through our links helps support the show, and it's no extra cost to you.
So dive in and get your next read today. thenextreel.com/originals has all the films adapted from other sources that not only we have covered, but all of the shows on the Next Reel family of podcasts. Check it out and get reading.
Support the show and build your reading list. It's a win-win. Head to thenextreel.com/originals.